Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. Alright, so this is going to be a double episode, still working our way through the backlog of news from days ago. I think we're making progress. Going forward, I'll just do the new day's news and stick in whatever we can manage from the backlog. No time to gab, gotta get back to work. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. You keep me going. As Congress flounders on stimulus, Fed Chair Jerome Powell repeated his warning on Tuesday to Congress that too little stimulus is a far greater risk than too much. It still seems to be falling on deaf ears in the Senate, who now feel they have no political incentive to pass stimulus, and unfortunately are twisted enough to see no other incentive, such as, saving America and Americans. A recent household pulse survey found that 1/3 of adults expect to lose income in the next 4 weeks, 1/3 of adults have difficulty paying for normal household expenses, and 17 million are behind on rent or mortgage, with 1/3 of those at risk of eviction or foreclosure in the next 2 months. On a longer time scale, Dan Price tweeted a report by the Economic Policy Institute that summarized new wage data. The data shows that in every period since 1979, wages for the bottom 90% of earners were continuously distributed upward to the top 10%, resulting in an increase in income of more than 345% for the top 0.1% of earners since 1979. While the bottom 90% of earners gained only 26% in income during the same period. 26 versus 345. And that's not even close to the difference in income inequality, much less in wealth. That's just the increase in income inequality in the last half century. The vast majority of America is being left by the wayside. As Yang said, for the $900 billion price tag of the bipartisan bill that excludes direct stimulus, you could give every American $3,000. He also made the very good point that if Congress gave Americans the choice between their bill and $3,000, the choice would be overwhelmingly one-sided. In other drama, Obama gave a speech in which he advised progressives against using the slogan, "Defund police." As he said, quote, "You lose a big audience the minute you say it, which makes it a lot less likely that you're actually going to get the changes you want done. The key is deciding, do you want to actually get something done, or do you want to feel good among the people you already agree with?" End quote. His words, of course, upset many progressives, including AOC, who expressed that she believes it was the slogan which brought attention to police brutality. I have to disagree there and agree with Obama. It was Floyd's taped murder which brought attention to police brutality. It was the violence of some protests and the defund slogan which allowed propaganda to turn an unassailable civil rights movement into just another partisan wedge issue. Just as with the branding of democratic socialist, the progressive movement continue to shoot themselves and the rest of us in the foot by handing their opposition the perfect weapons against them. Stoked paranoia over socialism and abolishing police were two major drivers behind Trump almost winning a second term, and they will continue to prop up right-wing radicalism. Like it or not, marketing matters. On the other hand, Yang Gang's own spiritual leader, Reverend Wendy Hamilton, has officially filed for the 2022 U.S. House race in Washington, D.C. Hop on over and give her some encouragement. It's easy to tell she's going to be an incredible candidate. Now, I don't know if this is what you want for a Christmas gift, but Yang was promoting Ezra Klein's new book, Why We're Polarized, saying it reads as if it were written after the election. I haven't read it, but it's going on my list. Anything that can help us understand how we got into this mess will be key information to helping us get out of it. In other Yang Gang news, I was surprised and concerned to see a tweet from Scott Santons that he has tested positive for COVID. He says, however, that he has had only light symptoms and that it is receding already. That's not to say he's out of the woods yet, as it's not uncommon for the virus to attack in waves, with the second being more severe. But he will likely be all right. Here's hoping this is the worst of it for him. The world's not done with you yet, Scott. This comes on the heels of a record-breaking day for COVID deaths and hospitalizations, over 2,700 people were reported dead of COVID on Wednesday, the highest since the pandemic began, and about the same as were killed in the attack on the World Trade Center in a single day. Somehow, the tragedy that roused Americans to war is now happening daily, and a large portion of the country seems not to care. That is the difference having an agent to blame and partisan politics can make in people's minds. Scott also tweeted an argument for UBI that I find very compelling and want to share. In answering where the money would come from, he pointed out that GOP tax cuts are always sold as paying for themselves in the economic growth that they will generate. Since UBI has already been proven to multiply the money put into it in GDP, far more proven than tax cuts, I might add, the same argument applies to UBI. If you support tax cuts funded by deficit spending, then logically you should also support UBI funded by deficit spending, because in the end, it will create more wealth than it consumes and go straight into the hands of citizens. After all, it does function as a tax cut for almost everyone with earned income. Put that one in your back pocket for appealing to fiscal conservatives. I also appreciate this framing from Jeffrey Irvin, who said, quote, "There can be no true free market unless both buyer and seller can walk away from any proposed economic transaction that is proffered under normal economic circumstances. UBI allows us to normalize those circumstances for everyone." End quote. The Ontario Dietitians in Public Health organization has endorsed UBI in their new comprehensive policy statement on food insecurity. As one of their measures to combat it, they advocate for a guaranteed income to all Canadians of working age to fill in where Social Security leaves off. I think we all know by now the robust evidence for UBI reducing food insecurity and improving health in myriad ways, so I won't go over it again, but it's great to see more health organizations stepping forward and saying it. It's starting to feel like Groundhog's Day because yet again we must congratulate UBI Lab on winning over another locality to the cause. This time it's the Swansea Council, first council in Waves to pass a motion in favor of a UBI pilot. Incredible. GQ magazine put out an article on the good things that happened in 2020, and guess what made the very top of the list? The popularization of Andrew Yang and UBI. And it was a pretty robust list of positive developments, so that top billing is quite a compliment. It's nice to be reminded as well that some good things happened in this otherwise terrible year. Worth a read, link below. Finally, in a charming turn of events, MLK3 joined Andrew in canvassing Georgia neighborhoods to inform voters about the runoff election and encourage them to vote. They took turns leading, and the pictures and clip of them in action are really heartwarming. Recommend checking them out in the links. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the income report, Scott and Jeffrey's UBI arguments, and the ODHP endorsement. Consider how the messaging you're using will be interpreted by others. Congratulate Wendy and UBI Lab. Check out the GQ article and Yang MLK pics. Don't forget to put in your half hour a day of phone banking or text banking to support the efforts in Georgia. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.